Before we get into today's video, I just want to mention that this was all scripted and recorded prior to Walt Weiss being named manager of the Braves on November 3rd. I was initially disappointed the Braves didn't go external to bring a young, fresh voice to the organization and sort of challenge the Braves' way. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this roster is already talented enough, after a few additions and quite frankly a healthy offseason, to go toe-to-toe with the elite of the elite. This team has already shown us they can win the division. It's time for Walt Weiss and the rest of his staff to show us they can do more than just that.
The story behind today's video began on April 2nd, 2025. Shohei Ohtani ended the Braves' first road trip of the season with a walk-off home run off of Braves closer Raisel Iglesias. From the loge level at Dodger Stadium, I watched the Braves take an early lead, only to slowly crumble and ultimately lose what should have been a very winnable game. That loss capped a winless 0-7 road trip to start the season, and things just never really got better. This season was supposed to be so much more than the end result suggested. A fourth-placed finish in the division, a losing record for the first time since 2017, and a season of injuries and poor performances all around. But the All-Star Game returned to Atlanta for the first time in a quarter century. The 95 Braves were honored during the season, and there were some encouraging developments, like Drake Baldwin's solid rookie season, and Spencer Schwellenbach establishing himself as a key cog in the Braves' rotation. But while we didn't know it until after the fact, this was the final year of Brian Snitker's tenure as manager. We are now at a crossroads with the Braves organization, so it's time to take stock of where we're at. At the time of this recording, the Braves are in the process, probably, of hiring a new skipper to replace longtime manager and organizational stalwart Brian Snitker. Forever a World Series champion and a true Braves lifer, Snit led us through the end of one of the most recent rebuilds to great effect. He guided a young, hungry, and probably prematurely competitive team to 6 straight division titles, 7 playoff appearances, and a World Series win in those 8 years at the helm. Snit's retirement after the 2025 season does leave me with somewhat mixed emotions, since Snit was the last coaching link to the team of the 90s, the last true disciple of Bobby Cox. But for as much as Snit did for the organization, this was a long time coming. To figure out why, let's go back to the 2023 NLDS. While hindsight is always 2020, and we don't know if the Braves would have won this series anyway, the decision to leave Bryce Elder in to face Bryce Harper in Game 3 of the 2023 NLDS irritated me to my core. Given the situation, the tied series, the hostile environment, and an especially pissed off Bryce Harper, there was no way that a rookie like Bryce Elder, who possesses underwhelming stuff, could be allowed to face Harper. Sure, the first couple innings went well, but with 2 runners on base, it felt like the perfect time to go to the bullpen and bring out someone specifically to go after Harper, or at the very least, walk Harper to get to someone else and attack them with a reliever. But Snitker's misplaced trust in Elder, to me, was the moment where I lost faith in his ability to adapt and make changes on the fly. And in the years since that fateful night in October of 2023, Snit didn't show any improvement in his ability to read the urgency of the moment and respond accordingly. The even-keeled, it's a long season approach works until the calendar year flips to the 10th month of the year. And for a group like the Braves had in 2023, it's nothing more than a failure. Now, I'm just a random dude with a microphone and strong opinions about baseball. I'm no expert on winning baseball games at the major league level, but as a lifelong fan of the Braves, it was frustrating considering where we are with this team. The 2023 Braves were, in my opinion, the most talented Braves team in my lifetime. For the last 30 years, the Braves have been one of the most consistently excellent franchises in baseball. More than 20 division titles in 30 years is nothing to ignore. But what irritated me about the postseason in 2023 and the years that have followed was the lack of urgency in big moments. The team had the talent, the depth, and the experience to win it all, multiple times. But when faced with adversity in Philadelphia, the team crumbled and the most potent offense in the league vanished. For the second consecutive season, it was an early exit for the Braves at the hands of the Phillies. There's no guarantee that anything would have gone differently had Snitker operated with a heightened sense of urgency. But allowing Bryce Harper to be the one to deliver the fatal blow to the Braves' postseason hopes in 2023 was a grave mistake, one that still sticks with me 2 years later. The 2 seasons since 2023 have been littered with injuries, inconsistency, and a perceived lack of that competitive edge. I won't act like injuries haven't been a factor. That Acuna enduring a second torn ACL, Strider undergoing a second major elbow procedure, along with so many other absences, weren't part of the reason the Braves struggled. But they weren't the reason. And any argument that injuries prevented the team from performing anywhere near their potential is superficial at best. Braves country, we're at a crossroads with this organization. Of course, the Dodgers are the gold standard in baseball, and not everyone can spend like them. But the Braves don't need to behave like a big market team to compete with one. Thankfully for us, there's no rebuild or massive roster facelift necessary to get back to the top. Other franchises haven't been so lucky, and we should consider ourselves fortunate to be able to simply retool and reload, not rebuild. Let's break down that talented roster. The core is solid. Acuna is an MVP. Olsen set the franchise record for home runs. Austin Riley is among the best all-around third basemen in the league when healthy, and Michael Harris is a top-tier defensive center fielder who has shown he can hit at times. Strider and Schwellenbach are still very young and have elite swing and miss stuff, and few in baseball call a better game behind the plate than Sean Murphy. But the key to success isn't just a clean bill of health. Acuna and Strider need a full, healthy offseason and spring training. And there are a number of additional ailments that kept the Braves from full strength all season. But beyond getting players healthy is the need for this talented group to play like they can. They haven't done so for 2 seasons, and ultimately whether or not that happens will be down to the new manager and coaching staff. The talent is there. The execution and the focus need to match. Despite that wealth of talent, however, there is a gaping hole in the roster at the shortstop position. Nick Allen performed admirably, playing elite-level defense all season long. 7th among all 117 qualified players in outs above average, 3rd among shortstops, and 3rd among all qualified shortstops in fielding run value. But with the Dodgers going from strength to strength every season, the Mets spending Steve Cohen's billions, and other teams around the NL staying competitive year over year, the Braves need more than a good defender and liability at the plate at the shortstop position. I've seen calls for Bo Bichette, but I'm not sure the worst defender by almost every statistical category is the answer. The offense doesn't need a top-tier addition, just another piece to lengthen the lineup just that little bit extra. A piece like Ha-Sung Kim would do just fine. But in the event Kim signs elsewhere in free agency, the Braves will need to find someone to not just fill the role, but provide something offensively. Still, at the end of the day, the shortstop position is defense first. The modern day shortstop, theoretically, is supposed to be both an elite defender and a major contributor offensively. But there are only a handful of those guys around the league. Fewer of them are available, and the Braves definitely won't shell out that kind of cash needed to bring them to Atlanta. So we should be realistic about who we want playing short for the Braves in 2026 and beyond. On to the pitching staff. We know how challenged this was all year, with the pitchers dropping like flies halfway through the season. I'm not sure how many other organizations could survive their entire opening day starting rotation being on the injured list at the same time. But let's also not act like the Braves were in first place when the freak injuries to Sale and Schwellenbach happened, and when the innings finally caught up to Grant Holmes. The Braves were already way under 500, and a long shot to even be in the postseason conversation when they welcomed the league's best to Atlanta for the All-Star game. You can never have enough pitching. That much is true. And while Alex Anthopoulos has been acquiring minimal cost relievers in the hope that they'd maybe turn out okay, the bullpen was a flat-out disaster all season. Raisel Iglesias is a free agent, and while he showed remarkable improvement in the second half, Players like him can only be one piece in a greater, more effective unit. The Braves knew they wouldn't have Joe Jimenez ahead of the 2025 season and did little to nothing to account for it. And no, Enyel De Los Santos and Rafael Montero doesn't count. There has to be some very intentional investment in this team's pitching staff as a whole, not just the bullpen or the rotation. I don't know if there's a singular player or two that we could identify to be a fit. That's the front office's job. But someone with elite velocity and good breaking stuff is generally what gets you outs, especially in October. Velocity isn't everything in the modern game, but the higher the velocity, the higher your margin for error. And in October especially, there's very little of that to start. Plus, the Dodgers aren't going anywhere anytime soon, so the question isn't just how do we make the postseason, it's how do we neutralize Shohei Ohtani and the rest of that team on top of everyone else. We've identified the holes in the roster from a player perspective, but the most important moves the Braves can make ahead of the 2026 season lie in management. They need a leader, someone who keeps the standards high all season long, but can connect with a young group. You don't just forget how to play baseball, but it almost feels like the Braves have done just that from about May of 2024 through the end of last season. There seems to be a lack of focus with the entire organization. In this clip right here, Spencer Strider had to be the one to tell the coaching staff to check on AJ Smith-Shawver. That tells me there's a lack of attention to the little things from everyone, not just the players, not just the coaches, and not just the front office. Without strong leadership to hold everyone accountable, and I mean everyone, it feels like the standards have dropped precipitously. And for a group this talented and an organization this well equipped, it's just a wasted year. So Braves country, we're at a pivotal moment in the history of this franchise. Alex Anthopoulos has a busy offseason ahead of him, and hiring the right people and acquiring the right players is absolutely essential. This is one of the most talented cores the Braves have ever had. We can't afford to waste it.